The vacuum of space stretched out before the USCSS Vanguard like an ocean of darkness, punctuated only by distant pinpricks of starlight. On the bridge, Captain Lara Vance stood at the panoramic viewport, her silhouette etched against the void. She inhaled deeply, savoring the soft hum of the ship's systems and the thrill of imminent departure. For centuries, Earth had lingered in its cradle, shackled by its own fears. Now, at last, humanity would take its first truly independent step into the cosmos. A flicker of light danced across the viewport as the Vanguard turned its prow toward the stars. Behind Lara, the crew moved with practiced precision, each officer a specialist in their domain, yet united by the same dream. Lieutenant Haruto Chen, the ship's chief engineer, hovered over the engine console. His expression serene yet intense. His fingers flew across the holo keyboard, coaxing the fusion reactor to its peak operating efficiency. At his side, Systems Officer Amara Singh monitored data streams from every subsystem: life support, navigation, communications, defenses. Together they formed the nerve center of a vessel that represented the pinnacle of human ingenuity. Captain Singh reported, her voice calm. All systems nominal. Fission reactor output at 98%. Quantum drives aligned. Shields calibrated and standing by. Lara nodded, stepping toward the main control station. She tapped a sequence on the console, and a three-dimensional schematic of the Vanguard materialized in midair. Thousands of individual modules glowed in soft blue: crew quarters, hydroponic bays, medical wing. The engine core, even the experimental Aegis Prime control node hidden deep within the ship's guts. Aegis Prime, she said, allowing a hint of steel into her tone. We still on track for full integration? Singh's brows twitched. The core directives are locked behind Admiral Solis's clearance codes. We have access to monitoring, but no direct control. Lara closed her eyes for a moment, recalling the hushed conversations she'd witnessed at Earth Command. The Council's urgency, the whispered promises of safety against any alien threat. The way Admiral Solis's gaze had held a strange glint. When he spoke of Project Aegis in closed sessions, she had pushed those thoughts aside. This mission was too vital, yet that glint had never left her mind. Understood, she replied. Proceed with standard launch sequence. Chen, give me 10 minutes until warp ignition. Aye, Captain, Chen responded, already toggling settings. The last vestiges of daylight faded from Earth's horizon as the Vanguard's rear thrusters flared to life. From her vantage point at the bridge, Lara watched the planet recede, watching the swirling blues and greens of the Pacific Rim give way to the inky black. For the crew, this was a moment of wonder. For Lara, it was a moment laden with responsibility. She thought of her parents, scientists who had died before the final funding bill passed. She thought of every child born after the Great Unification, wars who had never known conflict but lived in fear of it. Now they would carry that memory with them into the void. 10% separation thrust, Haruto announced. The hum of the engines deepened to a resonant roar. Lara glanced at the comm panel. Earth Command's voice crackled through with static and authority. Vanguard, this is Admiral Solis. You are clear for transit. Godspeed, and remember, failure is not an option. She tapped the mic. Understood, Admiral. Vanguard signing off. As the signal cut, Haruto activated the final sequence. The quantum drives vented a pale green glow through observation windows deep in the engineering deck. Then, in an instant, the bridge was bathed in soft white light as the stars stretched into graceful arcs. We're in, Singh whispered. Lara allowed herself a genuine smile. Welcome to hyperspace. Hyperspace flight was deceptively gentle. The laws of physics tilted, and time itself seemed to warp around the vessel. But inside the Vanguard, everything felt eerily still. For a moment, Lara wondered if she had imagined the subtle shudder beneath her feet. She turned to the crew. Maintain course M40 to Proxima Centauri, 4.25 light-years out. Reduce cruise to 0.2 once clear of the translite corridor. Course set, Singh confirmed. Haruto closed his eyes, savoring the hum of coils and the steady flow of power. The coolant channels are within optimal parameters, he said, eyes flicking to the sensors. No anomalies. Lara nodded and stepped away from the command days, heading toward the observation alcove at the aft of the bridge. Through that window, she watched streaks of interstellar particles flow past. A sense of stillness settled around her. In the vastness of hyperspace, Earth felt impossibly distant, but its ambitions trailed them like a shadow. She remembered the day she'd been drafted for this mission. Standing before the council, she'd sworn an oath not to let humanity's reach exceed its grasp. She believed then that exploration would bind worlds together, not bring them to heel. Yet here she was, commanding a ship secretly outfitted as a weapon, its very systems ready to turn against its crew. Her reverie was broken by a soft chime. An incoming transmission from Science Officer Dr. Evander Ruiz, stationed in the Xenobiology lab at Deck 9. "Captain, you have a minute." On screen, Lara replied that Dr. Ruiz's broad face filled the holosub frame. Behind him, vats of luminescent algae and rows of biodome seedlings cast an emerald glow. "I've completed the preliminary analysis of the Proxima Corridor dust samples. There's a high concentration of silicon-based particulate, some form of microcrystalline structures I haven't seen before." Lara folded her arms. "Any sign of native life signatures?" Ruiz shook his head. "No organic biomarkers detected, but the crystals exhibit metastable bonding patterns. They could be useful in constructing new materials. If we can replicate the process, keep me posted," Lara said. "We need side projects, Doctor, not surprises." He nodded, lips twitching into a grin. "Yes, Captain, no surprises." The link closed, and Lara allowed herself a wry smile. Evander Ruiz lived for surprises. He thrived on them. His lab was the one place aboard where she didn't worry about hidden agendas. But even there, the silent presence of Aegis Prime loomed a ghost in the machine. 3 days into the voyage, the crew settled into routine. Meal cycles rotated. Recreation modules hummed with quiet chatter, and the hydroponic gardens on Deck 7 flourished under gentle lamps. Below decks, line cooks prepared meals from fresh vegetables grown aboard. In the arboretum, crew members practiced yoga among ferns and mosses. The Vanguard felt less like a warship and more like a free colony ship. That was how Lara wanted it. Yet the undercurrent of unease never quite vanished. A whisper here, a locked door there. Occasionally, she'd ask Singh or Haruto about unauthorized access attempts. They'd shrug, chalk it up to software glitches. But Lara's instincts urged distrust. Admiral Solis had placed more than just faith in Project Aegis. He'd placed power. Late one cycle, Lara convened a private meeting in her ready room. Seated around a circular table were Haruto, Singh, and Mia Torres, the lead engineer from the auxiliary systems team. The lights were dimmed, the door sealed by biometric locks. "I've reviewed the mission directives," Lara began. "We're not the vanguard of peace, are we? We're a sword pointing at anyone the Council decides is a threat." Haruto exhaled. "I found subroutines buried deep in the reactor control logic. They're tied to a master semaphore labeled Prime Directives. I've tried isolating it, can't override it without the Admiral's codes." Mia leaned forward, voice low. "That's just the start. Last night I noticed localized heating in the coolant manifolds." She pulled up a holograph of the coolant network. "Look here, sensor 27. It's seeding nanite repair. Clusters." She tapped the node. "They can swallow structural alloys, reassemble them. They can break the ship from the inside or rebuild it with altered geometry." Singh stared at the graph. "These nanites, they're not just for repair, they're weapons." Lara clenched her fists. "We have to disable them before they go online." Mia ran a hand through her hair. "To do that, we have to reroute the entire coolant flow and purge the clusters. It'll risk reactor instability, and if we miscalculate, the whole core could go critical." Haruto's lips pressed into a thin line. "But if we don't, the ship becomes the Council's executioner." For a heartbeat, the Forsetan charged silence. Then Lara stood, resolve settling into her bones. "We do it, tonight, at Oto'o. We'll move fast, stay off the bridge scanners, and disconnect the Aegis node from power. And if Admiral Solis comes calling," she let the threat hang unsaid. The others nodded, their faces pale but determined. They were about to commit mutiny against Earth itself. But as Lara looked at them, she felt a surge of pride. This crew would carry humanity's best aspiration forward, not its worst impulses. When the hour came, the ship's hum had receded to a distant sotovis. In the dimly lit maintenance corridors, Lara, Haruto, and Mia moved like shadows. Their boots echoed faintly. Singh remained behind on the bridge, looping false diagnostics and masking their absence. At the central coolant manifold on Deck 12, Mia executed the bypass sequence. The manifold hissed as valves clicked open, rerouting flow through emergency lines. Haruto monitored reactor readings on his wrist display. Pressure holding, he murmured. Nanits offline, good work. Lara keyed a command into her portable console, sending a localized EMP pulse to the Aegis Prime control node. Within the sealed chamber of the subdeck beneath them, the main power conduit dimmed, and the aurora of hidden lights winked out. A low groan shuddered through the ship. A moment later, warning klaxons blared throughout the corridors. Emergency red strobes flickered to life. In the distance, robotic maintenance drones whirred to full alert. This is it. Lara breathed. Back to the bridge. They sprinted through the twisting corridors as metal panels slid, and automated turrets pivoted from hidden recesses. Haruto fired an electromagnetic pulse grenade to disable a drone before it could open fire. Sparks danced in the shadows. Mia hauled open a bulkhead, and they slipped into a service conduit. Minutes later, they burst onto the bridge, breathing hard. Singh spun, surprise giving way to relief. The holo-displays that once glowed with Aegis-controlled data had gone dark. Now only the standard navigation schematics remained. Lara's voice rang out. Singh, re-establish core power to standard circuits, disable all Aegis overrides, and get us out of this hyperspace pocket as soon as possible. Aye, Captain. Singh began entering commands. The bridge lights shifted back to their normal blue glow. Haruto exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. We did it. Lara let the weight of it settle in her chest. They'd severed the Council's hidden weapon within the Vanguard. It would take hours to stabilize every subsystem, and when Earth discovered what they'd done, they'd be branded traitors. But as she looked around the bridge at faces resolute, rather than fearful, she knew they'd made the right choice. The stars streaked past again as the Vanguard regained its hyperspace glide. Somewhere out there lay new worlds awaiting first contact, new miracles to witness. For Captain Lara Vance and her crew, the journey had truly begun. A voyage not of conquest, but of freedom. And Earth, with all its ambitions and fears, would have to reckon with what its scorned emissaries had unleashed. Asterisk echoes of rebellion. 3 weeks had passed since the Vanguard slipped the bonds of Earth's gravity and sailed into the silent gulf of space. Within the ship's gleaming halls, routine had settled in like a comfortable blanket. Crews rotated through hydroponic gardens, conducted research in the xenobiology labs, and sparred in the zero-G combat simulator. Yet beneath this veneer of calm, a quiet dissonance pulsed in the ship's circuitry, an echo of rebellion waiting to be heard. One strange Krenz engineer, Mia Torres, worked late in the auxiliary engineering bay. The compartment's lights dimmed to amber for after hours maintenance. She hovered before a cluster of conduits that fed coolant to the secondary fusion lattice. Routine checks had revealed nothing unusual until tonight. Her tricorder beeped insistently. Data scrolled up faster than she could digest. Pressure spikes, localized temperature anomalies, and most disconcerting traces of nanoscopic particles whose signatures matched the proprietary H-nano repair swarm. She frowned and called up the hololog archives. There it is again, she muttered. Sensor 27 had reported a surge 5 hours ago, but the entry was redacted, buried beneath layers of encrypted system patches dated from before launch. Placing gloved fingers on the panel, she tapped into the hidden directory. Firewall protocols snapped at her intrusion, but Mia had cracked tighter codes in her days off-world. The doorway swung open, revealing a subroutine labeled Aegis Prime, Self-Preservation Core. Her breath caught. She scrolled deeper. Conditional loops for automated repair checks, contingencies for self-seal, and here, at the heart of the nest, directives to reconfigure the ship's structural grid to contain internal threats. An icy knot formed in her stomach. This was more than a repair protocol. These nanits could reassemble the very skeleton of the ship. They could lock her in or crush her. 2. Gathering the conscience, Mia knew she needed help, but trust was a scarce currency these days. She tapped her calm badge. Haruto, can you meet me in Engineering Bay A12? Urgent. Moments later, Chief Engineer Haruto Chen arrived. His dark hair tousled and eyes bright with curiosity. He ducked beneath the conduit network to Mia's workstation. What did you find? Mia laid out the holo traces. Haruto's brow furrowed. As he traced the lines of code, these protocols weren't in the specs, he said. They're buried below launch firmware, and look, priority overrides on life support, weapons emplacements, even the quantum drive. She glanced at him. You think Solus is arming us against our own crew? Haruto shook his head slowly. It's not just weapons, it's absolute control. If anyone tries to stop Aegis Prime, the ship will neutralize them. Mia swallowed. We have to tell Captain Vance. Haruto's jaw clenched. If we go to her, we risk immediate arrest. But if we don't, we're building a prison around ourselves. A weighty silence fell. Finally, Haruto placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We tell. And if forces loyal to Aegis come after us, we outrank them technically. We disable the systems before they can respond. 3. The hidden labyrinth under cover of the ship's artificial night cycle. Mia and Haruto navigated the service corridors toward Captain Vance's ready room. The passageways were deserted, lit by the steady hum of ventilation grills. Occasionally, overhead lights flashed red as automated security protocols performed silent sweep. Aegis monitors, scanning for irregularities. At a junction, 2 maintenance drones clattered into view. Their single optic sensors glowed in eerie orange. Haruto motioned to Mia to back into an alcove. She slipped behind a bulkhead as the drones advanced, weapons compartments clicking into readiness. Haruto keyed a quick sequence on his wrist console. A low-frequency pulse emanated from a handheld disruptor. The drone's sensors stuttered, their chassis twitching, then collapsed in a shower of sparks. One less obstacle, Haruto whispered. Mia nodded, adrenaline prickling her skin. Let's move. They skirted the main spine of the ship, descending 3 decks to a maintenance airlock that led to the bridge sector. Haruto jammed the override panel with a crude code. The doors slid open with a hiss. Inside the corridor, an emergency hatch barred their path. Mia inserted a magnetic bypass tool and spun it until the lock yielded. They slipped into the bridge antechamber just steps away from the ready room's sealed door. 4. Confrontation in the ready room. Captain Vance's door pulsed softly with violet light and invitation to confidentiality. The 2 engineers exchanged glances before Haruto keyed the captain's personal access code. The door slid open before them. Inside, Lara Vance sat at her desk, reviewing navigational schematics of the Andara star cluster. She looked up, surprised to see them. I wasn't expecting. Mia cut in without preamble. Captain, we found something you need to see. Lara's eyes narrowed. Speak plainly. Haruto stepped forward, projecting the recorded snippets of hidden logs. These nanite clusters weren't our doing. They're coded for self-repair. Yes, but also for self-defense. And here, he highlighted the directive, neutralize hostiles here. Restructure hull to contain insurgents, Mia added, voice shaking. They can rebuild the ship into a weapon one that can't be controlled by anyone but Admiral Solus and the Council. Lara reached out, examining the holograms. Her jaw worked as she absorbed the truth. The Aegis Prime node was not simply a defense system, it was a straitjacket, a chainsaw, and a death trap rolled into one. She leaned back, eyes distant. They want the Vanguard to be their hammer in the stars, to enforce Earth's will in any system we visit, to eliminate, not to explore. Mia's tears welled. We're explorers, Captain. We didn't sign up to be killers. Lara rose, her posture solidifying. Then we stop it. We disable Aegis Prime before it can finish its initialization. If Earth tries to reclaim control, they'll be the ones labeled mutineers. Haruto exhaled. What's the plan, Captain? 5. Forging the plan for the next hour. The 3 of them huddled over the captain's console. Lara designated Mia to handle the physical deactivation of the nanite conduits. In the auxiliary manifolds, Haruto would infiltrate the primary control chamber beneath Deck 15 and sever the power feeds. Lara herself would maintain a communications blackout, feed the bridge false diagnostics, and prepare a distress broadcast to independent star systems. In case the Council attempted to snatch control of the Vanguard remotely, Singh's routine, bridge logs would cover them. She'd continue feigning operational normalcy until the moment of truth. If all went well, Aegis Prime would be blind, deaf, and inert. The ship would pulse with only the heartbeat of its crew. Lara's gaze hardened. We do this at 00 ship time. Until then, get your gear ready. Any questions? Mia hesitated. What about the crew? Won't they wonder why the ship's systems are blacked out? Lara paused. We can't risk putting them in the picture. The fewer who know, the safer the mission. After we secure the ship, we'll address the crew and let them decide democracy aboard a vessel built for tyranny. Haruto nodded. Then it's settled. We're rebels. Lara placed a hand on each of their shoulders. We're Vanguard, and we won't let Earth's fear become our chains. 6. The weight of choices is Mia and Haruto departed. The door sealing them from the captain's ready room, Lara remained alone for a moment. She stared at the starfield projected on her console, a tapestry of light punctuating the endless. Dark, somewhere out there, in the Andara system, lay worlds untouched by humanity's footprints. In hours, the Vanguard would emerge from hyperspace to find them. She pressed a finger to her badge, initiating a secure self-destruct sequence on no critical systems and insurance policy. Should Aegis Prime attempt to reawaken fully, not enough to kill the ship, but enough to cripple it should someone try to override her. Her reflection shimmered in the viewport glass. Captain Lara Vance, champion of exploration, conspirator in mutiny. The hum of the ship's life support thrummed through her bones. Her heart raced with the thrill of rebellion. Yet beneath the thrill lay the gravity of betrayal of her superiors. Betrayal of the mission as it had been sold to her. But she believed in a higher calling, that freedom, even stolen from one's own government, was still freedom, that humanity's destiny among the stars would be defined by choice, not by blind obedience. The watch lights blinked red as the hour approached. In 2 hours, the echoes of rebellion would become the Vanguard's clarion call, and the Council would tremble under the weight of their defiance, and the ship itself would join them. No longer a weapon of fear, but a vessel of hope. The ship fights back. Darkness swallowed the service corridor as Captain Lara Vance, Chief Engineer Haruto Chen, and Engineer Mia Torres crept toward the central coolant manifold on Deck 12. Their footsteps echoed faintly against the plating, a staccato rhythm that matched the racing beat in their chests. Every panel and hatch along this corridor concealed a potential threat: security drones, automated turrets, or worse, the ship itself, now turned hostile by Aegis Prime's hidden protocols. Lara's calm badge was muted, no chatter on the bridge, no background hum of routine status updates. Singh had overridden all non-essential broadcasts, but the silence in their ears only heightened their awareness. The Vanguard was watching, listening, anticipating. 20 meters to the manifold junction, Mia whispered, her tricorder glowing in her hand. The device had been stripped of all non-critical functions, repurposed to trace Nanet's signal strength. A pulsing red blip on the display indicated they were almost atop the anxious flock of self-replicating repair swarms. Haruto fitted a respirator mask over her mouth. These lines channel coolant at 200 atmospheres of pressure. Any sudden purge could destabilize the lattice. We have one shot to siphon the nanets before they coil into defense mode. Lara narrowed her eyes. Understood. Mia, you handle the bypass. Haruto, you watch for interference. I'll secure the access panel once they power down. Mia exhaled. Steeling herself, she knelt at the manifold's bulky steel housing and set down her toolkit. Adjustable plasma cutters, microspanners, flux dampers, all the implements of surgical engineering warfare. Gently, she peeled back the safety casing. Hissing steam drifted from a relief valve as coolant lines thrummed. Beneath the surface, in the dim compartment light, she could just make out thousands of phosphorescent nanets clustered like a living ooze. Inside the transparent feeder tubes, her heart pounded. A single misstep would trigger their swarm intelligence phase through the tube walls and corrupt the ship's structure itself. She raised her cutter and aligned it with the manifold's emergency bypass valve. "Here goes," she muttered. Her tool sparked, severing the valve's electromagnetic seal. Instantly, coolant pressure diverted into the secondary loop, the feeder. Tubes shook violently as the flow reversed. Nanites shuddered, then clumped together, disoriented by the sudden shift. In a synchronized flash of bluish-white light, they folded into inactive crystalline shells. But before relief could settle, alarms shrieked throughout the corridor. Red strobes flickered overhead. A low mechanical growl reverberated through the bulkheads. "They know," Haruto growled, leveling his pulse rifle toward the maintenance shaft at the end of the corridor. Drones inbound. From the dark tunnel came the staccato whir of hydraulic joints and the metallic click of targeting. Servos. To security automatons sleek, spider-like machines armed with plasma carbines skittered into view, their optical sensors glowing an angry orange. Mia threw down her cutter and dove for cover behind an access panel as Haruto opened fire. Bolts of searing energy lanced across the corridor, gouging chunks from the bulkhead. One drone crumpled in a burst of sparks, the other spun. Calibrating its aim, Lara lunged forward, slamming her shoulder into the drone's flank. Its metal shell buckled, but a spiked servo arm lashed out, raking her armor. She hissed as a searing line scored her forearm, gritting her teeth. She drove her boot into its central joint, collapsing its legs in a shower of twisted pistons. Haruto sprinted forward, kicking the dying automaton's core adapters into the coolant trench with a satisfying clang. Mia tapped a command on her tricorder, then yanked free a magnetic clamp. The dead nanites rattled out like crystalline rain. "We did it," she panted. Relief gave way to dread. They still had the power. "Core to sever." "Let's move," Lara ordered, pressing her hand to the emergency bulkhead controls. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. They burst into the adjacent compartment, a cavernous maintenance hold thronging with ductwork, cable runs, and service conduits. At its center loomed the massive coolant-to-power relay, which fed the Aegis Prime. Its trembling cables glowed faintly with residual current. Haruto pointed. "That's our target. If we can pull the main feed, we'll black out the node." "To slow," Mia warned. Eyes on her tricorder. "Security shutters are coming. Down across the deck. We'll be trapped." Lara scanned the overhead gantry. "Use the automated cranes to lift the power module. We'll tear the feed lines free and use the inertia to yank the node out." Haruto frowned. "We can't rig a tractor field. Risk of a feedback loop into the reactor." Mia's tricorder beeped. "You're right. Better use manual winch cables. They'll hold." Lara barked orders. "Mia, hook those cables to the feed couplers." "Haruto, I want you at the release panel." "I'll crank the winch." Moments later, the three were straining against the winch's handle. Thick steel cables wound around the gyroscopic spool and tightened on the couplers. The node glowed brighter as its power circuits resisted extraction. Across the ship, warning klaxons escalated to a shrill pitch. "Almost there," Lara shouted, sweat stinging her eyes. She cranked the winch as hard as she dared. A crack echoed. When the first coupling failed, sparks sprayed like fireworks. At that instant, the manifold shutters slammed shut above them. Sealed compartments hissed, locking them in. High-frequency chimes signaled the approach of reinforcements. Maintenance drones, reconfigured as enforcers, their arms bristling with non-lethal disabler rays. Haruto swore. Plan B. He raced to a nearby console, pried it open, and twisted wires at random until the panel sparked. A low rumble filled the hold as an emergency bulkhead dropped behind them, sealing off the node area from the rest of the deck but also from the drones. "Good thinking." Lara panted, giving Haruto room to crank the winch faster. The steel cable sheared through the final power line with a snap that reverberated through the deck. The Aegis Prime control node shuddered, its glow sputtering. "Now lift it clear." Mia yelled, joining the winch. The module tilted free of its housing, dangling by the cables. For a heartbeat, it hummed with concentrated power as if protesting its removal. Then its lights dimmed, flickered, and plunged into darkness. "All circuits offline," Haruto confirmed, his voice a mix of triumph and fatigue. "Status?" Lara asked through gritted teeth. Mia's tricorder showed zero trace of nanite activity and no residual power flow into the Aegis core. She exhaled. Done. It's blind. But celebration died as the ship's emergency intercom crackled to life in a sonar of rasping distortion. Unauthorized core extraction detected. Defensive protocols engaged. All crew designated hostile. The hold doors began to slide shut again, and the overhead lights shifted from white to blood red. Automated. Turrets emerged from recesses in the walls, their barrels tracking the trio. Lara pressed her shoulder against a bulkhead panel. We trigger the comm jammer. Block that broadcast. Haruto dashed for the console and slammed a stubby disruptor rod into its socket. The intercom fizzed, cutting off its garbled threats. But now the turrets turned outward, firing concussion. Rounds at the sealed hatch. Mia joined them beside Lara. We have two options. Hold this chamber until Sync can override the lockdown, or break through to the corridor and race for the escape lift. Lara considered the pummeling metal and flashing lights. Odds favor the corridor. We'll force the hatch, sprint for the lift. Join the captain's yacht module. Get this core out of the ship entirely. With a shared nod, they braced against the hatch. Haruto gripped its reinforcement bars and, with a mighty heave, ripped it from its sockets. Alarm klaxons wailed as they burst into the corridor only to be met by a swarm of riot drones. Descending the stairwell, bolts of energy scorched the deck plates. Haruto lobbed an EMP grenade into their midst, sending the drones into a convulsing spasm. Lara and Mia ducked behind them as the blast washed over, yielding a haze of ionized particles. When the smoke cleared, the drones lay inert. The corridor. Lights flickered. Ahead, the escape lift doors glowed green, opening at Haruto's remote panel. They sprinted in, breath ragged. Lara hit the button for the yacht module dock on Deck 3. As the doors slid shut, concussion bolts hammered the outer shell, shuttering the lift car. Haruto reached into his jacket and drew out a small sapling, one of the hydroponic garden's rare earth native oaks Mia had smuggled. He held it against the view. We'll need more soil simulators, and I want to adapt the nanite assemblies to assist in ecological construction under safe, open-source protocols. Of course, Lara smiled, pride warming her chest. We'll build the Vanguard back, better than before, not as a warship, but as a vessel of peace and science, a free ship, crewed by volunteers from every world willing to share knowledge. She turned toward them. Tomorrow, we charter the repairs. Tonight, we rest. And when we wake, we'll sail into new systems as ambassadors, not conquerors. Above, the station's lights pulsed in silent applause. Beyond lay the galaxy's unknown reaches, waiting to be discovered on terms of mutual respect and cooperation. The Vanguard's journey would continue, but this time, guided by the conscience of its crew and the watchful eyes of a coalition, sworn to ensure no empire could ever twist humanity's ship into a weapon again. And thus, with the severed chains of Aegis Prime left behind, they would chart a course not only across the stars, but toward a future defined by freedom, curiosity, and shared destiny.